If you want to create your best work, you must so dial in your mindset so that you are fired up on your divine purpose. And that's what it takes to be great. Welcome back to the Impact Show, my friends. Todd Durkin here, and I am so fired up today. I got my workout in today, and guess what? I am just days away as this episode drops from the one and only Impact Summit. Yep, it's nearing. We're down to the hour mark here because July 11th is kicking off. So, man, if you're listening in, please send us some blessings because we are going to be fired up. If you happen to feel some ripples and you're on the East Coast, don't worry, that's just us out on the West Coast creating a part A at the Impact Summit. So don't worry about us. But let me tell you what, it is going to be one special 3-day event here at the Impact Summit. I want to say thank you. Last week's, all of the feedback, all of the stories coming in and the DMs and the text message. I don't know what's happened, but we had a 2-parter with Melanie, my wife Melanie, Clay last week, and now we got Clay coming up again this week. Your feedback has been epic, and I want to say thank you. True strength, man, true strength is what it's been all about, and I'm so fired up as True Strength has led us into the Impact Summit. I got my big keynote on True Strength coming up here in Los Angeles, and I'm going to be dropping some dimes for a couple hundred people, and we got an incredible venue planned. But for you today, with the Impact Show podcast, you're in for a real treat as well. And I hope you, if you have not gotten in your workout today, you just may want to work out while listening to today's show. Because it's going to give you a little extra fire, a little extra juice. Because today we're talking all about the process of writing a book and being an author. And I'm going to interview Clay Manley. Clay Manley, if you did not listen to episode 365 last week, go back when you're done and listen to 365. But Clay Manley is someone I've been close in the trenches with for a long time now. We reconnected just last year, 2023, on the tail end of this 3.5-year period of adversity that I went through. And when I told Clay I wanted to write True Strength, and I mean this, there was only one other person that I would write this book with, and it was Clay Manley. It was either me solo or me with Clay. And I decided to go with Clay because he's a professional author and writer. And I wanted to do this in a timely fashion because if I didn't have Clay, this book wouldn't be coming out until 2025 at the earliest, probably 2026. And thank you to Scripter Publishing, because if it wasn't for Scripter Publishing, this book would not be coming out for 2026. And Scripter Publishing somehow miraculously has this book out. Well, it came out, a few weeks ago now, June 18th. And the fact that we took this from cradle to grave, meaning it started in December and it birthed in June here just a couple weeks ago, and grave to the day I die. This will be part of my legacy, and I hope you have the opportunity to read it because it is special. And Clay Manley is a core factor in making this all come to life, because Clay and I, for the last 7 months, have been working our tails off to bring True Strength to the world so that you could read it, to give you inspiration to get through any trial, any tribulation, any storm that you may be enduring, or someone else you know is enduring, or that you will go through. And what I'm intrigued at today, as I settle in here to the Impact Show today, is how Clay Manley, a professional author and writer, how he goes about the process of writing a book, and specifically with True Strength. How did he write True Strength? Like, what did he do to actually write this book that has become now a 3-time, at the time I record, a 3-time #1 Amazon bestseller in different categories? 3, not just 1, but 3. It's because not necessarily just the story, but in the writing of what Clay did. And he's got some very specific and exacting processes and routines that he does that I believe you can benefit from. And I wanted to go into those processes and routines, whether you're a writer, an author or not. If you're not, his routines and habits are going to help you become the best at what you do as well. So without further delay, part 2 of this episode with Clay Manley, and part 4 of our True Strength series. I got the one and the only Clay Manley back in the house. Clay, let's go to you right now. Clay, I want to just pivot for a moment because that's a lot on True Strength, but just let's give our our audience really even a broader picture, because I do believe that it's an intriguing field that you're in as an author, and you know what you do, and you know you have your own copywriting company. You have worked with some of the biggest brands in the world. You mentioned some of them like Marvel and Petco, and it goes on and on. And now as a nonfiction author, how did you make the transition from all of that corporate world into what your passion and purpose really is? Tell me a little bit more about your journey.
So it started by accident. I would say I've been doing copywriting, we'll call it corporate copywriting for years,
Mm,
was leading the team at Petco, all of Petco's own brands. So if you were to go into a Petco 3, 4 years ago, 80% of what you saw on the dog food, the packaging, the toys, even the walls and the windows, the decals, was stuff I wrote or my team wrote. And we crossed $1 billion in own brand or private label sales while I was leading copy and content at Petco.
mm,
But I was incredibly unhappy, incredibly unhappy. I worked in an office with 900 plus people, their headquarters in San Diego. I was often the first there and often the last to leave. And the corporate culture, not just Petco, but the corporate culture in general, wasn't for me. So at the height of the pandemic, as crazy as this sounds, I decided to quit my corporate job with little lined up. And my wife, Kelly, thank God for her. And thank God she's so supportive, because she could have easily been like, what the heck do you think you're doing? Right now, everyone wants to keep their jobs, and you're volunteering to leave at the height of a global pandemic.
mm.
And I was like, yeah, and I'd like to buy a house now too. So I bought a house, left the corporate job the day we got the keys, and went on this venture on my own to be a freelance marketing consultant and direct response copywriter, to apply all I'd done for the biggest brands in the world to other people and places.
Mm,
And that journey, now 4 years in, has been incredible for a variety of reasons. The freedom and flexibility I have to be with my son. I take every Friday afternoon off for family Fridays. We just started adventure afternoons. Yesterday, we went to Patriots Point in Charleston because I'm spending time with my son. That's time I know I'm not going to get back. I'm very intentional with that. And I wouldn't have that if I was working a typical 9 to 5.
mm,
And I knew that. So I started freelancing and working with a variety of clients. And, because I had the Petco name and the big brands behind me and the $1 billion in sales and all of that, I wouldn't say it was easy. I grinded, but I had the credibility and the skill and the talent to start landing clients fairly quickly and building this business up. Then what happened, you asked about the transition to an author, was after doing my annual roadmap, thank you, Todd, one of the goals I had for a previous year, I believe this was 2021, goal was to write a book.
mm.
And I was just kind of like, I want to write a book. I've been doing this copywriting thing, which is different. I'm like, I want to write a book. Well, December rolls around. I didn't write a book that year. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I want to write a book. I kind of just was like, I'm going to toss that goal aside. Within weeks, that January, so this would have been January 21 or 22, recent January, one of my copywriting clients, Justin Prince, world's #1 network marketer, calls me. And I'm thinking, what did I mess up that Justin needs to talk with me one-on-one right now? Like, what did I say in his copy that he hates? Are we getting sued? Like, what's going on? And Justin said, Clay, I've been wanting to write a book for a while. I've hired writers to help me write a book, and nobody could get my voice and tell the stories the way I want to. And he's like, you're my guy. Will you write a book with me? I cried, Todd, because it was one of those moments where you feel seen and you feel
Mm.
like someone else is like elevating you to that level you want to be at.
Yep.
And after I cried, I said, I don't think so, Justin, because I just did my annual roadmap and I took a book off of my goals. And this would change everything I'm focused on now, 3, 4 days into the new year. And he pumped me up. He talked to me about a unique arrangement where
Mm.
my name would be on the cover, the royalties that I would get, how this could be a legacy play. And I thought, huh, based on that, let's do this. And I reminded him multiple times, Justin, I've never written a book before. And he's like, I haven't either. We'll figure it out. So to have someone at that level really, give me that vote of confidence, and to already have a relationship with him through a different kind of writing that had
Yep.
been successful and he'd been happy with, I
Yep.
said, let's do it. Well, Todd, that book took almost 2 years from contract to publication because we
Wow.
were working with Simon and Schuster,
Yep.
a little bit of a different situation. And I couldn't clear my schedule at that time and do this sprint right away. So I wrote the book over the course of a year, but 60 to 70% of it was in 2 weeks. It was just months after that kickoff. So it was a different process where we started talking, but it was months until I actually was able to start putting words down. And then on the publishing side, you have a hand in scripter publishing, which is great. You can be nimble, you can be quicker, you can prioritize differently. Simon and Schuster, you got a year wait.
That's
So
exactly
even
right.
after the book was done, we had to wait a year. And the challenge with that for me personally, Todd, was by the time the book came out, it felt like such old news to me. Like I was like, I'm on to the next thing. Like
100%.
I've forgotten all about it. It didn't feel
100%.
special and monumental. And you can relate. You've been through it. So this happens. I write this first book. I'm excited about it. By the time it comes out, I don't think twice about it. And then months later, I start thinking, this direct response copywriting that I've been doing so long, I've kind of climbed to the top of the mountain. I'm considered one of the world's best. I've worked with great brands and businesses. What's next? A question we ask in True Strength. And it started to hit me of how proud I was of that first book, of Be the One. And I thought, I want to do more of that. Now, this was October, November of 2023, 6, 7 months ago. Call it divine timing. Todd Durkin calls me November, tells me he wants to write 2 books this year and he needs help writing one. And my jaw about dropped right outside the house here in the pocket park I play at with Weston, because I had just, Todd, decided that I was going to double down on writing books. I had just decided that. I thought about the Be the One process, the accomplishment, all these things. And I'm like, I want more of that. The copywriting has become mundane, expected. I've climbed the mountain. I need a new challenge. I need this. What's next? And lo and behold, you appear as I'm going through this and as I'm settling in on the idea of prioritizing books and making that's what's next for me. And so that's how I got here. It was skill and talent in a different kind of writing and building relationships through that
Fascinating.
that led to a book opportunity. And then it was intention and reflection and planning and digesting and thinking and getting serious about where I want to go and answering what's next. And next thing I know, you call and here we are. And
Interesting.
now I'm on a mission to write 10 more. So there we go.
What's interesting about that is there's a couple things that stand out. Number one is sometimes you have to take things off your annual strategic plan in order for it to happen. And what I say, because you just mentioned that, is for 10 years, literally, I had on my strategic plan to go onto a national TV show. The year I took it off and said, nope, it ain't going to happen, it happened with strong. Like, why didn't I take it off 5 years ago? Right? So sometimes you have to take things off your list. Number two is, you mentioned about the traditional publisher. Get Your Mind Right was actually written in 2018. It came out in June of 2020. But you're in a queue. You're in a long line when you go that, and there's nothing wrong with traditional publishing. If you have a big list and that, you can go with that. You'll probably get decent money up front if you got a good list and all that stuff. That's another story, another episode. But I wrote that book in 2018. It came out in the middle of the pandemic, the worst time, June 2020. Maybe it was the best time because people's minds weren't right in June of 2020. But to your point is, thank God Scripter, because it does self-publishing and we could write a book with Scripter Publishing. This book is coming out in 7 months. Literally from the start, there was nothing in December other than a concept to it's now as of June 18th. It's out already right now as we speak. And then the last thing is, you mentioned, I can't tell you how many people, if you have an inkling to call someone, call them today or be in the room today. I can't tell you how many times like this, what you just talked about, like I just called you out of the blue. If I ever have a hunch 2 or 3 times within a few hours of calling someone, I'll call them for whatever reason or something I've been working on and someone keeps coming to my forefront of my mind, call them, because you never know what's going on with someone. Because Clay, what you just shared, I have probably 5 examples of divine timing of talking with people that, oh my God, I've been thinking about you. And then next thing you know, we're writing a book together because of a phone call that happened on that. So I'm always a huge believer. And if someone is coming to your mind or you think, oh, I should go to that event or I should be doing that, then just show up. If it means tomorrow, call them or show up. Some of the best live events I've ever been to was like less than a week away, I'm like, I'm going to find my way in the room because no one's going to kick me out. Next thing you know, you have one conversation with someone or one thought process that changes the trajectory of your world. Watch what happens. Boom. So anyway, great points on that. The other thing I want to talk about is creative windows. You're an author, you're a writer, you're a prolific writer. I want to talk about creative windows because how do you create these windows? You talked on the episode about how you can get up at 3 a.m. sometimes and work when you're in this really deep process of the writing process. But I'd like to talk, like, if someone has a tough time getting in that creative writing process, how do you do that? Are you wearing headphones or are you listening to music? Do you like dead silence? Are you in a coffee shop where there's kind of this ambient sound around you, or do you like dead quiet? I'm curious for you, Clay Manley, as a professional writer, one of the best I know, and I know a lot. How do you find these creative processes? Are there specific habits that you do? I'm very, very curious.
So yeah, and I've learned this the hard way from doing the wrong things, right? And
Mm,
from kind of studying myself and what works for me, which may not work for everyone else. First and foremost, I know that I'm at my best first thing in the morning.
mm,
I'm at my absolute best creatively first thing in the morning. So that's why you hear me mention, for example, when writing True Strength, I started as early as 3 a.m. I was like, the earlier I get up, the better, because I know that's when I'm at my best.
mm-hmm,
And it's interesting, like, I don't eat anything in the morning when I'm writing. I
mm,
just want to get up and immediately start. It's
mm,
almost like there's the ideas or thoughts are in my head. I wake up with them and I need to get them down
mm,
before I lose them. So first and foremost, I start in the morning. I like to operate on long windows. So like I said, the total timeline, I'm going to use True Strength as the example, was about 3 weeks of intense writing, but we're talking 7 days a week, hours upon hours on end,
mm,
because I like that sprint. That's what works best for me. Because if I step away for too long, it's hard to get back into that space. For example, let's say I took a weekend off. Come Monday, I'm going to have a hard time getting back into the Todd Durkin mindset and mentality. I may have to reread everything I've already written just to
yep,
get back to where I was and find my footing again. And I don't
yep,
want that to, I don't have time for that, nor do you. The other thing I learned specifically with True Strength was, and Be the One, I can't write in a familiar space or an overly familiar space, which means I can't write at home.
mm,
So I've always had a home office. With Be the One, my last book, I rented an office elsewhere. I made sure it was close, 5-10 minute drive, but I rented an office specifically for that time while I was writing the book. And it could not be one of those public co-working spaces. It was in a co-working building, private office, door was always shut. I
mm,
had to stay focused. I had to be in my space. In
mm.
this case, now in South Carolina, I rented a neighbor's frog, finished room over garage, frog. So I had a stairwell I walked up
I
every
like
day
that.
into the frog. Interestingly enough, a very famous digital artist, Bleeple, you can look him up. I'd never heard of Bleeple, a Charleston local, used to use this frog as his showroom. Bleeple sold his work for tens of millions of dollars. Justin Bieber, every big concert, or excuse me, artist uses his digital art for their
Mm,
concerts.
mm.
I wrote True Strength in Bleeple's showroom.
Let's
So
go.
what was very
What?
cool, yeah, what was very cool was, one, I didn't know what Bleeple was, but I'm like, this is cool. This is a very nice, fancy place, which, by the way, is not what I need, but was cool. The challenge was I was in a room, a frog that overlooked a pond. There's
Mm,
turtles, there's animals, there's wildlife. It also overlooks palm trees, my favorite kind of tree. I miss California a little bit. I'm looking at palm trees, I'm looking at the wildlife, I'm hearing the frogs, and it's easy to get distracted. And so I mentioned that first day was a struggle. Well, I didn't have my desk chair. I forgot to bring it with me. I'm working on a folding table. I need to go home. I get there at 3 a.m. I need to turn around, walk home, get my desk chair, bring it to the frog. Then I realize I'm distracted by the animals and the wildlife. I'm like, not quite ready. I had to shut the blinds. Then I realize I'm worried for whatever reason, someone is just going to show up. I have to lock the door. I had to do all of these things to finally get in that flow state. I had to leave my phone at home. So the voice messages you were getting from me were the one break a day I was taking, which was lunch, or at 3 a.m. before I was at the frog. My point is, I needed what I call, courtesy of Justin Prince, a cone of silence. I needed to be completely away from distraction, entirely focused. Nothing could get in my way. And I needed to start first thing in the morning. I took one break a day, which was for lunch and to see my son Weston and my wife Kelly, which was important for me. That was kind of my recharge, and I couldn't let that break be too long. You're talking 15, 20 minutes. If it went too long, if I sat on the couch, I'm done. I am
Mm.
toast. So J.K. Rowling and others do similar. I didn't get that from them, but I found out after that's what they do. J.K., for example, rents a hotel room, closes the blinds, tosses the TV remote, unplugs the TV, and sprints. And that's what works best for me, is to
Mm.
sprint, to get in that flow state and stay there. So to answer your question, there's no headphones, but there is some level of silence or stillness, and there's no distractions. The distractions are the number one thing I need to eliminate. And distractions can be the frickin' turtles outside, the palm trees in front of you, your phone, you name it. They all had to go. And that's when I did my best work.
And what about working out? Did you walk, do any 20 minutes, an hour of movement a day, or nope? I, for 3 weeks, just sat and wrote. What
This
I'm
is going to
curious.
bum you out, T. I did not work out, but I knew, and this was the intention I set for myself during the sprint, I'm not going to work out.
Mm,
When I'm done, I'm back to hitting it hard. So it's
mm,
kind of like my off season or
mm.
recovery. And that's what's happened. Since we finished the book, I'm back on. I'm on. And my workouts have become a priority again. And that was important to me. I felt like for me, and I don't think this is for everyone, if I were to go to the gym or try to get a workout in, though it may give me energy, it might become a distraction.
Mm.
So again, the method acting, I was staying in the zone, and I
Yeah.
knew when I came out of that zone, we're
I
going to
was gonna say
celebrate.
you look good right now. You're looking good.
Thank
So
you, thank you, thank you. Well, that's a compliment coming from you.
well, you look fit, and I understand. Well, I'm going to be down there this fall because we have a friend, right, that purchased a big bundle of books, and I'm going to come down there and speak in South Carolina. Talk about how that all transpired, because she's in the fitness industry and doing great things.
Yeah, so shout out to my friend Paige Hubbard. We moved, my wife Kelly, my son Weston, our cat Frankie, and I, from San Diego, South Carolina, October
Mm.
1st, 2023.
Yep.
And we moved into a community that's newer, a master plan community. They're still developing all around. And I met Paige. Paige is the GM and a variety of other roles for a fitness company called High Low Fitness. Well, through our relationship, through her being in the industry and knowing who Todd is, we started to talk about this book, and she chose to buy a lot of copies for High Low because they're opening a new facility in the community we moved to.
Mm.
So I get the pleasure of having my guy Todd come out to hang out, and High Low gets the pleasure of not only all these copies of True Strength signed by Todd to share with their community and our community, but Todd's going to come and lead a keynote or a workout.
Yeah.
So, man, shout out to Paige because I had barely just met her, and she was like,
Yeah.
"You're doing what with
Action.
me?"
Yeah. She took
Yeah.
action. And shout out to Paige, because I know we've talked, and I'm excited. She, folks, literally bought hundreds of copies of the book. And part of our bundle was that if you do that, she was our first one, is I will come to your community and speak and or work out. So I'm hoping we get a workout and a talk, and we'll do some more book signings. But I can't wait to get to South Carolina. It's going to be a short hop, skip, and a jump over to North Carolina to see my sons Luke and Brady on that. So I'm pumped. If you're in the South Carolina, North Carolina area, or want to be this fall, part of our book tour that will be announced here real soon. We're going to announce it at the upcoming Impact Summit. That will be part of our tour. And a huge shout out to Paige and what she and her team are doing, by the way. It's really cool to see what High Low has coming down the pike also. And you talk about bringing light into the communities. I know, Clay, you just, had the opportunity to get to know her here recently, but it's cool to see what she's doing in South Carolina, and soon to be way beyond South Carolina as well.
Yeah, and it's going to be even easier for me to work out because they're opening 2 blocks from my house. So I'm going to have
Yeah.
no excuse.
You have no excuse. So you better be ready to go, because when I come down there, we're all going to be working out
Oh,
hard.
we're going.
So,
We're
so,
going.
so hey, you mentioned a BHAG. I love BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. I want to know your BHAGs, guys. Drop them in the comments. But one of your BHAGs that you mentioned, that you want to write 10 New York Times best-selling books. 10. Love the number 10. Why 10? How'd you come up with the goal?
So it started with doubling down on books when I was doing my annual roadmap and strategic life plan.
Yep.
December 2023, planning for 2024. I said the copywriting business is humming, things are good. I want to move more to business owner versus being the writer, and that so that I can write more books and create more legacy. To me, the books are a legacy play. I can't wait for Weston to be old enough to read them and hold them in his hand and see my name, whether I'm here or not. That's important to me, on top of financially, royalties and things like that. You know, the most wealthy people you know are not getting paid for things today. They're getting paid for things they're doing today, tomorrow. And as I thought about doubling down on books, I thought about, what does that mean? What does doubling down mean? Like, what is that to me? And New York Times bestselling has always been kind of a great metric of a book's success, and something that stood out to me. The author I admire most, J.R. Moringer, who happens to be a ghostwriter like me, has written New York Times bestselling books. And I thought, that's the path I want to go down. I want to read the books I like to read, or write the books I like to read, which are bestsellers from J.R. Moringer, happen to be nonfiction memoir type books. He wrote Andre Agassi's Open. He wrote Phil Knight's Shoe Dog, things like that. And so I said, I aspire to write a New York Times bestseller, a New York Times bestseller. And then I thought, dream bigger, like dream bigger. Why one? Why a? Why single? And I said, I'm going to write 3. I love the number 3. 3 is kind of the magic number in so much of the creative work I do. We give 3 design ideas, 3 headlines, 3 pieces of feedback, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. And then I thought, why 3? Why not 5? And eventually it led me to 10. And the reason I landed on 10 was, I want to write 1 book a year, and I'm going to write 1 book a year. I don't know that I'm ready to plan out past 10 years from now. So I thought 10 feels right. And then and that it is a 10-year commitment. It also felt right in that I am a quality over quantity guy in everything I do. And you see that, and your team sees that, and anyone who has ever met me or works with me knows that. It goes down to my friendships. I want quality over quantity, everything in life, my copywriting business, you name it. And there are other people who do what I do, and for them, it's more of a quantity approach, which I understand. They want their name on a lot of books. They want to put a lot of books out there. They want to help a lot of authors, and that's admirable and that's honorable. My way is not right or wrong. But to me, I want every book to be a hit. And I actually looked at, speaking of movie posters, Quentin Tarantino, basically 10 for 10. He set out to do 10 films. As we know, all of his films have been huge hits. And I thought, why can't I do that? Why can't I combine what I love about writing, J.R. Moringer's nonfiction memoir type writing, great storytelling, fantastic storytelling, with kind of the success level of a director I admire in Quentin Tarantino? And everything, all the signs, all the intention kept telling me 10. On top of that, as I was working on my roadmap and thinking about these goals, I had, we'll call it a faith-like or God-like experience that made me feel that I was on the right track and thinking about the right things. And that's kind of when I said, again, 1, 3, 5, not enough, 10. So for me, it's a 10-year plan. I'm willing to do 1 a year for 10 years and want to do 1 a year for 10 years. And when I look at others out there who inspire me, I see that quality over quantity, and I know I can make that happen. So per your point, Todd, the goal is 10 more starting in 2025, and to go 10 for 10 on New York Times bestsellers.
Yep. So talk a little bit more about that. Like, how do you find your clients? Like, as an author, if someone wants to write a book someday, do you only write, I'm certainly not famous, but do you only write for people of a certain level, or do you write for anyone who wants to write a best-selling book that has a great story that says, hey, I want Clay Manley to be my guy? How do you find your people? Yeah, I mean, if you want 10 best-selling books, how do you get your people?
Yeah, so I'm very selective, first and foremost, which I learned from my copywriting business. We're also quality over quantity there. And by the way, I understand that can limit you in some ways, but for me, it's what makes sense. And I can tell you right now, I've already had people reach out wanting to discuss a book. And to me, a book is such a big, intense commitment for me and for you. But like, sometimes it's forgotten that for me, it's a big commitment. It's a big, long, intense emotional process where I have to stop my life for, in some ways, someone else. And so that's why I'm so selective. It's got to be the right person. It's got to be the right story. They've got to want to share it for the right reasons, and they got to have the right budget too. So what I look at is three things really. Do I feel they have a best-selling story? Now a
Mm.
New York Times best-selling story. Is it a story I want to tell? It's one thing to have the story, is a story I want to tell and feel equipped to tell.
Yep.
That's number one. Number two is, do I feel they have the audience for the story? Are they going to be able to help get books in hands? Are they going to be able to move
Mm.
books? Because we can write the best book ever and share the best story ever, but if people don't read it, does it matter?
Yeah.
So they've got to be
Right.
able to move books. I knew you would do that. I knew you had the audience. I knew you had the fire and the desire to do that. And then number three, the uncomfortable one, is of course budget. I've got another business. I've got to put my life on hold. Time to me, and I know everyone's heard it, is my most valuable asset,
Yep.
because I got a wife and a kid. I've got a family I care about. And these are the years. Weston's going to be 3 in September. These are the years that I get my most time with him.
Yeah.
I'm not sacrificing that for any story, anyone, or anything. So it's got to pay the bills now and later. It's got to be that legacy play. So that's really what I look for. And that's what I'm vetting right now, in fact, is, do you have the story? And is it a story I want to tell? Do you have the audience or the means to get the audience? And then do you have what I feel is fair budget or compensation for what I'm going to commit to you? Because as you know, Todd, from working with me in a variety of ways, you're not going to find someone else who cares as much as I do. That's fact. And so if you or someone you know feels you check those boxes or want to check those boxes, email me, clay@claymanley.com, and we start there.
Yeah. Clay, thank you for that, because you are a quality person, man, husband, father in everything you do. And I've seen it for years now, not just 7 months, for years. And with anyone in my audience, I can't endorse you enough. It's why I chose you as the person to write the hardest story that I've shared out of my 5 books. This is my 5th book. And this is the book that certainly was the trickiest one to write. And there's no one I trusted more than you, Clay. And I can't endorse you enough. If someone is looking for a writer and you have a story that you want to share, reach out to Clay. If you're not sure, reach out to Scripter Publishing. Kelly Watson on my team, Kelly and Greg Justice with Scripter. They have a cadre of writers and authors. If you want Clay Manley to be on your team with a project that you've got coming up down the line, Clay just gave you his information. I'll put it in the show notes. Reach out to Clay and see if he's the right person for you and your story. If you have something you're like, I want to make sure this thing gets out and I want it written in the best way, well, read True Strength and you'll get a real good feel of his writing, because you got to have quality, period, on that. Speaking of which, Clay, do you think everyone's got a book in them? Regardless of they write it themselves, because you don't have to have a ghostwriter. Obviously, you can write it yourself. But do you feel that everyone's got a book
Yeah,
in them?
I do. I think, yes. Will they write it and execute it? I don't know.
Yeah,
But I'll go back to what you've said. Live a life we're telling a story about.
that's
Like,
it.
we're all doing it. You're writing your story every day. I think I needed to hear that through the Impact Body Plan
Yeah.
back when, to realize I had a story worth telling. And admittedly, I think one of my 10 may be my story. I may write my own story, or I
Mm.
may hire someone else to write it. I don't know, but I think it's going to be in there. And I feel like I'm just getting started. And I know there's others who are older or younger who
Yeah.
have already done a lot and accomplished a lot. So the short answer is yes. The long answer is, you got to be willing to buckle down to do it. It's easy, like anything in life, to say, I want to write a book, or I should write a book. And I'm fielding those inquiries right now too. We should do a book together. And I'm like, no, 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 there's no should. You're either ready to do a book and you have a story to share and a mission to fulfill and a budget to do it, or not.
Mm.
I don't play with the wishy-washy. I can't remember what you used to say, but like, people on the fence. You talk about people on the
Fence
fence, right?
walkers. Fence walkers.
Fence walkers. Fence walkers, T.
We don't
I don't
want
mess
fence
with fence
walkers either.
walkers.
Either
Yes.
get on or get off. Like do one or the other. Yeah.
Yeah, and let me plug Scripter too, who you mentioned, because Scripter was involved in this, and one of the reasons we were able to move so quickly. Like, I feel from my experience, Scripter is really well equipped to help that person who has a story to tell and maybe doesn't have all of the resources of a Todd Dirk and a Justin Prince or somebody else. like they can help make this happen for you.
Mm.
And it's not going to cost you an arm and a
That's it.
leg. It's going to cost you some sweat equity.
That's
So
it.
like do
That's
it.
it.
Like,
Yeah. No, and you hit the nail on the head because I always say that everyone's got a story. Everyone has a story. Are you willing to share that story? That's another question, right?
there
Because
we go.
not everyone wants to share the story like that I even shared here in True Strength because it's uncomfortable to share that. You don't need to, but I think some people have written books to just bring their legacy through their family, and it's for their future generations, for their grandkids, their great grandkids, and those close to them. Some want to impact, quote, millions of people on that. But the bottom line is this: life is truly it is a journey, and the journey of life many times brings us lessons. And if you ever feel called to share those lessons with those people around you, whether it's a fiction or nonfiction book, then if that's something you commit to, then put it on your annual strategic plan and roadmap,
Yeah.
and maybe someday you take it off. But be careful if
Yeah.
you take it off because that might be the year it happens,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, last couple of questions, Clay. Who inspires you? You got a lot of people on the inside I know you're close with, but is there someone or a small group of people who inspire you to do what you do?
My biggest inspiration, I'm trying not to get emotional speaking of tears, is my son.
I knew you were going to say
Again,
that. I knew it.
yeah, maybe it sounds cliche, but he's almost 3 and it feels like, and I'm sure other parents can relate, as soon as you have a child, it's like someone took the remote of your life,
Mm,
hit the fast forward button, and is just holding it down. Like everything's going so fast and it's easy to miss the moments and this time you have. And so everything, like I've used the words life changing in my life many times. Nothing I ever said was life changing was actually life changing until we had him, until we had Weston. That's the first time in my life that something was life changing, and it changed everything. The way I think about everything. He is
true.
a huge inspiration on why I want to do the books, why I want to do 10, why I require my name on the cover, why I structure the deals the way I do. Like it's him. He's number one. And
Mm,
man, I love that guy. So him. It's also J.R. Moringer. He wrote Andre Agassi's Open. He wrote Phil Knight's Shoe Dog. Even in grade school, I was not a reader and I never finished the books. I cheated. I went on Spark Notes or Cliff's Notes, if you remember those.
oh
I read
yeah.
the summaries and then got a C on my paper, but it was good enough. And when I read Shoe Dog, when a friend gifted me Shoe Dog, my early 20s, first book I truly couldn't put down. I could not put it down. I
Mm,
read it start to finish, basically on a flight. And I remember thinking, this is why people like reading. And then guess what? I didn't read for a few years after until I read Open. And it was at the end of Open that I realized the same guy who wrote Shoe Dog wrote Open. And I thought to myself, I want to write this stuff. The direct response copywriting that I do is I have that unconscious competence, like riding a bike, where it's easy and natural and obvious
mm,
for me now.
mm.
And that new challenge was, can I do this? Or even
Yeah,
I can do this.
love
So I
it.
find a ton of inspiration from J.R. Moringer. In fact, when you read True Strength, if you were to read Shoe Dog after, you'll see some similarities. I intentionally, leading up to True Strength, read certain books, including yours, as prep. And even during that sprint, I knew I was going to be reading Shoe Dog. And I would read Shoe Dog at night after writing all day. And I might highlight a word here or there because I knew the next day that word, I'd found a spot for that word in True Strength.
Yeah.
Example, I talk about a Buccaneers player in the context of Tony Dungy groaning versus using words like said or exclaimed or announced. Groaned came from reading Shoe Dog the night before as a word J.R. Moringer used. So specifically in my writing, it's other authors. And specifically in this case, J.R. Moringer, Jesse Itzler, and Dan Martell were huge inspirations. And if you haven't read their books, after you read True Strength, check them out. And I think you'll see some of the connecting of the dots.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, the rest of my family, my wife, my parents, my other brother who passed away when we were kids. I just think,
Mm,
um, the older I get, the more I appreciate family and the more family inspires me.
mm.
Todd, you were generous and gracious enough to let me put a note in the book, a note from the co-author, we called it In True Strength. And if you read that, you'll see family is a big piece of that to me because I don't know what I did to deserve it, but I got the best family in the world, man. I am so lucky, and that's not lost on me. It is not lost on me that I grew up in the household I did with the parents I did.
Mm.
Man, I'm gonna cry. That I found the wife I did and have the kid I did and the siblings, and that's not lost on me one bit. And then last but not least, I know I'm hitting you with a lot. I apologize, but last but not least, True Strength specifically, my friend Dave Benelkazar. You mentioned Dave earlier, Todd. Dave was a huge inspiration. Dave was a friend for 20 plus years now, which is crazy. I guess I'm getting old, Todd. But Dave was diagnosed with what we thought was eye cancer the day I got to California to have the kickoff with you. And Dave called me
Yep.
because I had a misdiagnosis years prior, and he was scared, he was nervous, he was spooked, all of those things. And they operated on his eye, and weeks later, when I got back to South Carolina and was starting the concepting process of working with you, Todd, it sounded as though things would probably be okay. And I mentioned a story in the book, so I won't go into detail, but Dave ended up being diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. It had spread to all the scary places you don't want cancer to spread to: your spine, your
Yep.
brain, your liver, et cetera. And Dave FaceTimed me to tell me that. And I thought the FaceTime was going to be good news. I thought he was FaceTiming to say, misdiagnosis with the eye. We're good, baby. Let's go. And instead, he was on a gurney in a hospital bed telling me he had blood clots in his legs were
Mm.
ballooning. And it turns out this is something far worse and far scarier than something that was already bad and scary. And the day after the diagnosis, we FaceTimed again. It's the only other way I can describe True Strength. We've got the Kintsugi, and the one other way I can describe True Strength is Dave's eyes. We were on FaceTime, and I could see in his brown eyes this strength, this true strength of, I'm going to get through this. The day before it was the diagnosis, and it was fear. It was fear, and I looked at him and thought in his eyes, he's too young. He's too young to be going through this. Also, he's never smoked a day in his life. Why is he going through this? Why lung cancer? Why stage 4? Why in his brain and his bones and his liver? But that next day, Dave showed true strength, and he was a huge inspiration. I got to fly back out to California from South Carolina during the process and attend his wedding. Kelly got to be the photographer. I got to give a speech. Dave gave a speech that had me wanting to run through a wall. I got to FaceTime him every day during an intensive, I believe it was 4 weeks in Mexico, while also writing this book. And at the end of the book, we got some good news with Dave, and that it hasn't spread. It's not getting worse at this point. There's still a long road ahead. He's not in remission yet, but as far as this book, Dave was a huge inspiration. And I think there's always one for your book. Like, there's always one at that time beyond, again, my son and my family and a specific author here and there. In this case, it was Dave. I'll look back on True Strength and I'll always think of our journey, and I'll think of Dave.
Yeah. Well said, my friend. I remember some of those morning prayers were, for Dave and Joe. Remember my friend Joe Panzolini,
Yep.
who's been on the podcast here several times, but Joe's in San Diego as well. And it's like, wait a second, I need to connect Dave and Joe walking similar paths. And, I knew you were going to start with your son, Wesson. We've talked about this a lot before, but I always mention, we got 18 summers with our kids. And now I got kids who are 21, 19, and 16. 18 summers. Two of them, are now past the 18 summer mark. But here in a couple of weeks, end of July, we're all heading to Montana for a week, and I cannot wait to get everyone in one cabin and have a week where we just have fun and relax and enjoy life. Because man, it does go by fast. You talk about fast forward buttons. I hope here as this drops here this summer that anyone with kids, regardless of how old they are, whether 18 or younger or they're above, as we realize that as these kiddos, you got 18 summers. And Clay, I know you're doing everything to maximize your time with your entire family, and Kelly and Wesson and all of these folks. So thank you for that. My last question is this: we talk about true strength, but for you personally, we talked about in the very, very beginning of all of this about true strength and what is it to you, but what gives you, Clay Manley, true strength now after writing this book? How do you look at true strength differently? What is true strength to you, and what gives you true strength?
So, how I look at True Strength differently is when you said those words as the title, of the book. I didn't know the story. And then the first story I knew was the one we shared at the beginning of the book, which I don't want to spoil for anyone. So if you haven't read the book, go read it. But
Crazy. That's a
all I knew
crazy
of it,
story.
yeah, all I knew of it was this crazy story. I didn't know what it means. Writing the book illustrated it for me in a variety of ways. And now I think what true strength means to me is a different level of resilience. So I'll go back to things we say in the book, some of these themes or threads of the book. Everybody has something. Everybody has something.
Yep. Yep.
I believe true strength is, how do you use that pain as fuel?
Yep.
How do you use that pain to motivate you? How do you use that pain as momentum? I believe I have true strength that I didn't know I had, but everybody has something. And, I've been misdiagnosed with cancer. I've battled severe anxiety and some level, maybe a pinch of depression. My twin brother, passed away when we were babies. That's why I know my mom and my dad have true strength too. I think we all have it. And I think that, or I hope that people use it, like use that as motivation and momentum, and use that to know you can accomplish and do hard things and to dream bigger. If it's, in my case, it went from a New York Times bestseller to 10, like 10x, baby, go up, do more.
I love it.
So it's a little bit scattered, but that's where I'm at with true strength right now, is I think it's those golden seams of kintsugi. And I think it's your ability, your power, your superpower to actually take your valleys and climb to new crests. And it's almost like using those valleys as springboards to a higher peak, as you've done, Todd, and as I hope to do, and I hope everyone else does too.
You are on your way, and it is an honor to be on this journey with you. And I thank you, Clay, for you pouring your heart and soul into this project. It's Although it's been 7 months, I know the best is still yet to come, but it's the hard work that you just shared on all aspects. Very much a collaborative project for us, but I'm really pumped for the people who are going to read this and who are going to be impacted on deep levels, and the number of lives it's going to save and help, literally. So thank you, Clay, for everything that you've done. And I wanted to have you on to make sure that we had everyone know who you are, because you've been a big part of True Strength and the book writing process, and helping me share the story and not waiting to get it out for another year or two, because I can't think of what would happen if we didn't get it out now. So thank you.
Thank you, man. T, thank you for the opportunity. We hadn't talked in years, maybe a text here and there, but years.
No.
And so the fact that this was such a benefit to both of us, and we both got to accomplish simultaneously the things we wanted, is really special and cool. It's something I'll never forget. It's a process and a book I'll forever be proud of. And I thank you for the platform, the opportunity, and as words of affirmation guy, as you know, for saying thank you and for sharing your kind words.
Absolutely. Guys, make sure you get the book, True Strength. Go to Amazon. It's on Amazon. Certainly go to toddurkin.com. Check out all the details on that as well. But just go to Amazon, pick it up, pick up 5, pick up 10, get some for your team, get some for your family. Trust me, this book is going to really feed your soul on many levels. Clay, if someone wants to follow you on Instagram or your social media, or you shared your email earlier, what's the best way that someone could follow you or follow up with you?
So I'm getting comfortable now sharing my story, live a life worth telling a story about. So follow me on Instagram, Clay.Manley, Manley. I'm the only Clay Manley you know, I promise, Clay.Manley. And you'll see me sharing some behind the scenes stuff with True Strength. You'll see me sharing some inspiration and insight from my journey to writing 10 New York Times bestsellers, as well as managing another business and just being a passionate dad. I always say I'm a dad first. That's my first role. And I got 16 summers left with Weston, so I'm going to maximize each.
Preach.
And if you want to write a book with me, or you're wondering if I'm your guy, or you think I'm your guy, email me, clay@claymanley.com, and tell me a little bit about your story. and we'll figure out if we're the right fit from there. But I'm more active on social media now than ever, and part of that's because of you, Todd, for empowering me and giving me a platform, and all the sayings and mantras you've shared over the years, for sure. And I hope if you resonate with some of the stuff I shared, you'll check me out on Instagram.
Yeah, check him out, guys. He's got some creative content that he shared in the last couple of weeks since the book came out. And he's doing a great job. Things that I didn't even know he was filming and recording. So check it out, because what he's dropped has been really awesome, and it's good to see his perspective on all things. Again, just go to Instagram, Clay.Manley. Make sure you follow him, check him out, hit him up. He's doing such a great job on so many different levels. My friends, I want to say thank you. Make sure you get the book, True Strength. It has been a labor of love for 7+ months, 3.5 years of hell going through a very, very difficult period, but most people did. My hope and our hope is that the True Strength message really resonates deep in your mind, body, and soul, and whatever part that is going to inspire you, that you go become a better man or woman, and you go light up this world with more positivity, optimism, hope, for your families, for your communities, because that's what this is all about, True Strength. Check it out. Can't wait to get your feedback. Don't forget to when you're reading it, take a picture with a big old smile and tag us, tag me, tag Clay on Instagram and your stories on your Facebook, wherever you hang out on social media. We want to see you doing your thing. And if we can serve you in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out. Don't forget, we got the Impact Summit coming up, man, just in as this drops in about 10 days, July 11th to the 14th, Los Angeles. You might want to check that out. Like, oh my God, I'm listening to this on the 9th. It ain't too late. Just show up and I'll find a way for you to get in the room on that July 11th to the 14th, Los Angeles, California. We've got a massive book tour coming up this fall, starting, well, heck, it already started, believe it or not. But just check out, it will be releasing all those dates at the Impact Summit. But be there, including South Carolina. And we want to check out that with Paige Hubbard and her team. And Clay, thank you so much, guys. Have an amazing day, everyone. Go out there and remember, train hard, eat right, live inspired, create some impact. And of course, you must have true strength.
Let's go.